Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hummus Hoarder channel. In this video, our topic of discussion is going to be smoking addiction. So let's get into it. According to the CDC, smoking is the largest preventable cause of death around the world. And growing up, we have all come across statistics like 1 in 5 deaths is due to smoking related issues, or the mortality rate among smokers is 3 times higher. But one stat that really surprised me is that 41,000 people around the world die due to second-hand smoking. Evidently, the damage isn't just limited to the smokers themselves. And as a former addict myself, I can attest to the fact that the very act of smoking isn't an enjoyable one. So this seems like a lose-lose situation. And the best way to counter is to deconstruct and understand it, which is exactly the approach taken in the reference book for this video, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. So in our crusade to understand the issue, we must first ask, why do people start smoking? The answer is that people start smoking because of a lot of reasons. For most, it's peer pressure. But something that really fuels the fire is the power of suggestion. You see, tobacco companies over the years, through product placements and ad campaigns, have been able to associate certain desirable qualities with smoking. So today, men and women subconsciously think that smoking makes them appear more confident and sophisticated, as we will see in some examples. Like these ads, because of which Marlboro became synonymous with cowboys, who are perceived to be tough and rugged. But I always personally thought that the ads here in India were a bit off. Like this one talking about satisfying men, or this one boasting about being thick, or this one that really has nothing to do with smoking. Thank God these were banned. But these are still fine because you see, back in the day before the link between smoking and lung cancer was established, tobacco companies used to actually promote their product using doctors, even claiming that it helped against throat scratch. It wasn't until years after the link was established that tobacco companies actually accepted that their product caused cancer. So you're telling me these corporations that only care about profit aren't the moral paragons we thought they were? Who knew? Now let's get back to the question. You see, initially, one has to get accustomed to inhaling the smoke. And as they do that, the nicotine addiction really sets in. Since today it is common knowledge that smoking kills, most people start with a self-contract, a time limit beyond which they are not allowed to smoke. For me, I thought I would only smoke for a year, but ended up smoking for 3.5. Now, the next logical question is, why do people continue smoking? The author describes this as a mix of man-made and natural disasters, because as nicotine enters our body starts to crave it. And an interesting fact about the nicotine level in our blood is that it drops rapidly, becoming half after half an hour and 1/4 after 1 hour has passed, pushing people towards chain smoking, which has a silver lining that we will see later. Most people, including smokers, think that smoking is a habit that people do when they're bored or they need to focus or even relax. But that's not the case. Habits are easy to change, addiction not so much. And as for the utility, that's not what it's really doing. You see, when our body craves nicotine, we feel this passive irritation that only becomes calm after we have a cigarette. If anything, it has the opposite effect by creating the irritation in the first place, giving rise to this vicious cycle. And that ties in scientifically as well, because smoking destroys something in our lungs called alveoli, which exchange oxygen with the air. And you can't focus when your organs are being starved of oxygen, especially your brain. So, how does the author advise on stopping? Before we understand that, we first need to understand why people fail. The moment people realize they're addicted is when they try to quit the first time using sheer willpower, which fails way more than it succeeds because it makes you feel like you're making a sacrifice and there is no reward of completion. So the author instructs to continue smoking as you go through the book and understand it to keep yourself from feeling deprived. And the reason in the beginning I had mentioned that smoking is not enjoyable is because a mature smoker past the initial excitement knows that it does nothing for them because they're pretty used to it and are essentially left feeling stupid, which is something the author highlights. The next thing Alan Carr does is personify the real culprits, the psychology as the big monster and the craving as the little monster. So first we deal with the big monster by realizing that smoking is not a habit and it does not enhance personal experiences. If anything, people who stop lead happier, more fulfilled lives, not just because of feeling less lethargic, but also because of the immense health benefits. And as for the little monster, that's easy to deal with because, as I mentioned earlier, nicotine dissipates easily from the blood, clearing from our system within a matter of days. And since craving is the only withdrawal symptom, any perceived suffering is mild and short-lived. Now, to execute this to perfection, the author suggests that we foresee situations where we might feel like smoking. And remember that it's only going to make things worse by starting the vicious cycle again. Next, let's talk about some concerns surrounding quitting, like weight gain, irritability, lack of self-control, and nicotine replacement therapy. When it comes to weight gain, it's because some people try to replace one addiction with another by having something sweet when they get the craving to smoke. That's not required, as we have seen, since the withdrawal symptoms are mild. And as for the irritability and lack of self-control, it's probably because of people overthinking. So the author suggests just take a deep breath and go about your day as you were. Nicotine replacement therapy, which is the method of switching to a safer form of nicotine, like vaping or chewing gums, have yielded bad results. Any claims of efficacy are made up by the tobacco companies who are financing this trend and who are frankly used to lying. I mean, in the end of the day, the addiction is the real issue. Without that, nobody would really smoke. And think about it, no one tries to help an alcoholic by giving them more alcohol. Now I would like to mention that I wasn't able to cover everything in the book. I was only able to do what I thought was important, but the book still has a lot to offer. And I would like to conclude this video with a few closing notes about the book itself. Firstly, the author does a lot of marketing initially, which gets a little irritating, but I'm fine with that as long as the method works, right? The second thing is that it becomes a little repetitive, but that's only because the answer to a lot of questions are the same thing over and over again, and the author really tries to hammer it in. And finally, I would like to mention that the book takes a hardline approach to all nicotine products. And I get that that's exactly what certain people need. But my aim reading this book was to get a control over my own addiction. I would still like to someday bond with an old friend over some hookah or try a Cuban cigar when I can afford to have one. And I don't even know if that's possible, but this book definitely helped me get the addiction in control, and for that I would definitely recommend it. That's all for this video. Thank you so much, and I hope you'll join me next time.